in Washington. I worked at ITN in London. I worked a bit at NBC, and I ended up sort of banging the doors down, getting into Sky Sports, and Vic Wakeling, the head of sports there, and Mark Sharman, they gave me an opportunity to do some voice work. They said, "What sport do you like?" I said, "Everything." They said, "We've got a space on the boxing team at the moment." I said, "That'll do nicely. I love boxing." And that was it. I fell in love with all the fighters. I got Barry McGuigan walked through the door within a few months, and my boss said to me, "Oh, you'll be working with Barry around the country doing previews and working with fighters." And I was thinking, "Oh my God, Barry McGuigan's like my hero." And then someone said, "Oh, and can you call David Gower? We need him in." And I was calling my hero. And still, when I walk past David Gower in a corridor, whether it was at Sky or when I see him at Lord's, when I see Barry McGuigan around the ring, I'm that kid. They're still on my walls. So I'm still a fan. And I think that's what it is. I always wanted to be a commentator. Ian Darke was an amazing mentor to me at Sky. Colin Hart was an amazing mentor to me in the journalistic world. Bob Mee helped me, Glenn McCrory, Jim Watts, so many in those early days at Sky. And I've worked with some phenomenal co-commentators. I had a bit of fun on the darts for a while. I enjoyed commentating on darts, which was great. It was almost like that was my holiday job, and my normal job is boxing, so that was good fun. And I didn't commentate like I really knew darts. I commentated as a fan. So yeah, look, I love it. I've had a go at horse racing. I've had a bit of a go at football, tennis. Look, I'm a boxing commentator, and yeah, I think I know where I love. And when I took time out when I was ill, I didn't know what I was going to come back and do. But I think boxing is a sport that when you're inside it, it grips you. It's unpredictable. It is the Wild West at times, which I think why Dana and Turkey are coming in to try and change certain aspects to it. And it can always change. And we love improvements and investment in boxing. But I think what we do all come back to, and Eddie will say this and Frank will say this, because I've worked with them, Frank for 15 odd years, Eddie for 10 years. You talk to each other on the phone. You want things to happen. He wants his agenda. As a broadcaster, you want yours. But ultimately, you love what you do. And I think by doing boxing commentary, I could commentate. I could work in a sport which was a bit like the theatre, like my love of acting and TV and film. I could work in it where there was always a story going on, and there's always something happening. So 24/7, something's going on. Like something will be going on right now as we're doing this out there, that as soon as we get out, I'm thinking, okay, that's taking a little twist, or, oh my word, I've got to look at, is that fighter going to go there? Or is that show still on? Or there's always something happening. So I think for me as a storyteller and someone passionate about life and passionate about sport, boxing is the answer, because really it's a sport that can go like that. It's a sport of life and death. And unfortunately, I have dealt with the really, really dark side of boxing, the sad side, losing James Murray a year after I started boxing at Sky, and having to go and see his mum and talk to his family about boxing after he sadly passed. Tragic. But I remember his mum sitting there saying boxing saved James from the drug-infested streets of Glasgow. And, he died doing what he loved, and a tragedy. And then Spencer Oliver surviving, and I was really close to him and seeing his build up. And now, 30 odd years later, he's unbelievable. He's everywhere, all around the broadcasting world. And he's not bitter. Neither's Michael Watson bitter. They're not resentful ever. They love the opportunity to do it, and they do it all over again and twice on Sundays. And that is the magic of boxing. And when people say, oh, it does brain damage. Oh, it's dangerous. It should be banned. Oh, there's too many drugs in it, or whatever. I go back and I say, talk to Spencer Oliver, talk to Michael Watson, talk to Nick Blackwell, talk to these guys who have gone through really difficult times, and I'm never brave enough to go into a ring, but I had to deal with cancer. And only after that, Sean, did I really, truly understand what it's like to be at rock bottom, what it's like to maybe the fighters who've lost or who've been injured or something, and they've got to find a way to come back through life, through dealing with mental health, through dealing with a different physical change to them maybe. And I have so much respect, more respect now. I had so much before I had my illness for fighters and for sports people who I love. But since, I mean, almost double it. And that's why I will always say I am grateful for every opportunity, and will only do this because of the boxers, because of the brave men and women that get into that squared circle and they do it. It's their life, and they're putting that on the line for our entertainment, for our viewing, for our enjoyment. And wow, it's an unbelievable sport if you look at it like that. And there's so many characters in it, and it is a sport that sort of drags you in. I remember taking one of my daughters to a fight. Both of them, they've all come. My 3 kids have come to watch Katie. We're pretty close to Katie Taylor. So they've all been to watch Katie, but they're not big boxing fans. My son's a big football fan, and my daughters, yeah, they'll watch it, they'll come. But my eldest daughter came a while back to a show in Sheffield, and she was introduced to John Pegg, who's a great boxing man, one of the great boxing men from the Midlands. And he said to Jessamy, he said, what are you doing here? And she said, oh, I like the boxing. She said, but he said, well, what are you doing with your life? She said, well, I'm about to start uni and I'm going to study criminology. You know, I'm really fascinated by people that commit crime, and you know, and look into the sort of forensic, what makes a thief, what makes it someone murder someone, you know, difficult stuff, right? But she's very fascinated, as we all are a bit, I think, by Crime Watch and all those sort of programs. And you know, she watched all sort of things. And John said, well, you're in the right place, because when God dropped lunatics into the world, he chucked them into boxing. And I think there's something to be said about that. We're all a bit nuts in the boxing world. I think we've all got good hearts, and I think we all love the entertainment, and we love the ups and downs. But yeah, we're all slightly crazy. You've got to have a screw missing to get in the ring in the first place. But I think you sort of probably got to have a screw missing to be a commentator too, because we work mad hours. We're all in. We get very emotional as well. You can't on mic. It's very difficult, but sometimes you lose the plot. I've done it before when Danny Williams won the British heavyweight title with one arm. Unbelievable. When Diego Corrales somehow got off the floor twice against Jose Luis Castillo. When AJ got off the floor to win at Wembley. I mean, these sort of moments. I bumped into a guy who said, oh, Scott Dixon sends his best. You might not know Super Scott Dixon. He had a fight with Derek Roach in the Midlands for a British welterweight title many years ago. I mean, they got off the floor so many times. It was extraordinary what they went through. Alex Arthur and Michael Gomez, Matt Macklin and Jamie Moore. That's at British level. There are so many incredible stories and gladiators. Alex Arthur dropped me a message the other day. He said, me and you should work together. He knows it, Alex Arthur. He's great. There's a ton of them out there. And the Jamie Moores who you see go on and do real well. You know, my wingman, Johnny Nelson, who I spent so many years with at Sky, and just seeing what he's got out of boxing beyond. It's an area that fascinates me, Sean, life after. And I just want these fighters to be happy, to be healthy, to be structured. They've got to have another job. They've got to do something different. They can't just sit around when they retire at 35, 40. They've got the whole lives in front of them. And the happier ones are the ones that keep working, keep themselves ticking over, and are not bitter. Because if you're bitter and resentful, you know, I could be bitter about my cancer and say, why did it happen to me? But you know what? I was saved. I shouldn't be here. I'm lucky. So I'm grateful for my stoma. I'm grateful to be sat here today, and I'll never take anything for granted ever again. And it also makes me think, hey, if someone doesn't want me to commentate, or they don't want me to do something, and they do say no, like they did a lot when I was a kid trying to break through, I'll be okay. I'll be all right, because I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive. And I'm very lucky to be back in the boxing world that I adore. People have been amazing to me. And, you know, you don't know this, but a lot of people don't know this, but people came through the doors of my hospital I was in 4 hospitals, Sean, 4 hospitals over 3.5 painful months. And I'll tell you, those people that came through, you know, I had messages from Frank and Kala and Nisse. Eddie banged the doors down he was there on my bedside when I was in a real bad way. Ben Shalom came and saw me. I had AJ messaging me one night, like through the night, getting me through one of those nights. Tyson Fury, Katie, I can't tell you. And that's the big names. Dillian, Derek, I can't tell you how many people, when it was so rough, reached out to me. A lot of people didn't even know my situation, but those who did, and those who didn't, when they knew it, They were like, Adam, it's just so good to see you happy and alive and well. I am so grateful for the support and love I had. I'm so grateful for the support I've had since the DAZN announcement, and that I'm back on the mic with Barry and with Darren and with Carl and with the team. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. I loved Sky. Cut me in half and I bled Sky. I was at Sky for 30 years and 95% of it I loved. And at the end, it was